Greetings, owls and weasels, and welcome to Codex Compliant, the series where we take a look at all the various codices, magazines, and general stuff put out by Games Workshop over the years.
We thought we'd give you something a little bit different today, so let's go back to GW's roots and take a look at White Dwarf number 1.
Yeah, we don't really have a physical copy, seeing as the original's from 1977. Give us a break. Back in the time of myths and legends, before Warhammer 40,000, before Warhammer, before Games Workshop had physical stores, there was White Dwarf. White Dwarf has been the main official Games Workshop magazine for over 40 years and has had many facelifts and changes over that time.
For the majority of White Dwarf's lifespan, it's contained nothing but Games Workshop related content, getting you hyped for what they have coming out, additional rules for their assorted games, hobby advice, bat reps, free gifts, or just simply pictures of Gav Thorpe's face. Unlike most other magazines, it's not full of adverts, since the whole thing is, when you get right down to it, one big advert for Games Workshop and their various product lines.
But in 1977, the Workshop of Games was a very different company. They wouldn't even have their first physical store until one opened in Hammersmith the next year. Hell, GW was only founded in 1975 and originally manufactured wooden board games before becoming an importer of Dungeons & Dragons. Basically, this came out before any of the settings or games you would typically associate with Games Workshop existed, except for Lord of the Rings, I guess, but that's licensed so it doesn't count.
White Dwarf would take over from GW's old publication Owl and Weasel, a newsletter that covered tabletop gaming in general that complemented their business at the time. White Dwarf would continue its mission and would feature various science fiction and fantasy tabletop games, but mostly Dungeons & Dragons. Hey, it was kind of a big deal to them at the time. So with no Warhammer, be it fantasy or grimdark in flavour, let's take a dive into issue 1 and see what we find.
First off, we should take in the cover for a moment. It's so gloriously 70s. Not entirely sure if this guy meant to behead his mate here or if it was an accident though. Because I mean, well, it could go either way. Once you're inside the magazine, you see the first big difference between this and White Dwarf as we currently know it. Adverts. And not just adverts for anything, but adverts for 40-year-old tabletop games you've probably never even heard of. Like Thane Tostig, a skirmish war game that had interesting miniatures. I'm gonna go with interesting. Or Monsters, a game where you played as the monsters preying on adventurers, which was based on the rules for Tunnels and Trolls, a role-playing game from 1975 designed as a more accessible alternative to Dungeons & Dragons. What we're trying to say is that every advert in here can lead you to a Wikipedia hole that is very easy to fall down and get lost in. Caution is advised.
The very first article in the very first White Dwarf is on the game Metamorphosis Alpha, which was published by TSR, the then publishers of D&D, and was apparently the very first science fiction RPG. The article gives you a general overview of the game and gives some suggestions on how you could run a campaign. Metamorphosis Alpha is set on a huge colony ship sent out from Earth that was affected by
space radiation,
which killed most of the people on board and eventually led to the remainder of the populace, plagued by mutations, to slip into barbarism. Basically like that one episode of Space 1999 that I'm sure you've all seen. They even recommend several sci-fi books to read to give you ideas, since there was just a lot of authors writing about colony ships gone savage in the 70s. It was just the done thing, I suppose.
The following section is about the Monstermark system for the first edition of Dungeons & Dragons, an elaboration of a system introduced in an issue of Owl and Weasel that was for, quote, assessing a monster's relative malignity. Or to put it another way, to find out exactly how dangerous the big bad monster men are so the DM doesn't accidentally murder the party by putting them up against something far too dangerous for them to fight.
And we've played a bunch of D&D, I'm sure we'll be able to explain how this system works. You know what? Maybe some other time.
There is one thing though. At the end of the article, there's a picture of a lady with her tatters out. She's holding a severed head, so that's the thing.
Next up, we have a couple of short reviews in their open box section. In this first issue, there's reviews for the game Sorcerer, 7 out of 10, and Starship Troopers, 9 out of 10, before getting to an article on competitive D&D, a phrase that might seem a little weird if you've not heard of the concept before, given that Dungeons & Dragons is inherently kind of cooperative. The general idea is that multiple parties run the same dungeon and whoever does it best wins. This article covers one such game and the writer's experience of running a dungeon under such a tight time limit. And given that when we play D&D, we always end up mucking around in the town for like a couple of hours role-playing, the idea of running a whole dungeon in like an hour just sounds incredibly stressful.
I mean, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Following that, we have yet another article about D&D. It's part 1 of a 3-part series and is about the different schools of thought on how a campaign can be run.
D&D players can be divided into 2 groups. Those who want to play the game as a game, and those who want to play it as a fantasy novel, i.e. direct escapism through abandonment of oneself to the flow of play, as opposed to the gamer's indirect escapism, the clear-cut competition and mental exercise any good game offers.
That's a really pompous way of saying in it for the roleplay there, mate.
Yeah, the writer kind of comes across as like a teensy bit judgmental of people who prefer to play in a way that he's not into, but hey, D&D was in a very different place in 1977, and at least there are some interesting points in there, like how just because rules for something exist doesn't mean you should include it in your campaign, which is just as applicable today as it was then.
As with many other magazines, White Dwarf 1 had a comic strip, The Keeper of Flame, and, well,
don't like the lettering for a kick-off.
Hey boss, there's a guy in here with a groper on his mitt. Says he wants to see you.
Then show him in, Tex. Show him in.
Okay, Oracle, if you're such great shakes, what about this? And cheapo kiddo.
Easy. Tex, go get Scurf.
Sure thing, boss man. There you, Scurf, the guy with a groper on his mitt. What you gonna do, Scurf? Bribe it?
Lordy no, I have subtler means at my disposal. Just tickle his tum and make him
Terrific. What do I owe you?
5 snakeskins, 2 goats, less special discount for coming through the magic oracle.
What, cashback?
Nope, smaller fish.
Oi, that's my dinner. Oh well, I guess that's showbiz.
Don't use the next frame, Tex. It's leaking.
So 'tis.
You may be pleased to know that, as far as our research has shown, the Keeper of the Flame did not reappear in White Dwarf.
In fact, it was gone by issue 2 to what we can only assume was much rejoicing. After that, we get a glowing article on a game called The Warlord, a 1966 strategy board game that, from what we understand, could be best described as Risk, but with nukes. The game is actually still available now, showing that the writer of this article, and one of GW's founders, Steve Jackson, was not alone in his love for the game.
Then we have the Treasure Chest, a section where readers could contribute ideas for additional rules to D&D, such as the Helm of Vision put forth by Stephen Littlechild, a magical helmet with gems in the eye holes that, among many other effects, does different things depending on the character's alignment. For example, a lawful character would see anything polymorphed in its original shape, and a chaotic character would see monsters as either stronger or weaker than they actually are 50% of the time.
There's also a class suggestion from Ian Wall that is just the worst. Oh, there's a caption competition. Let me try. Okay. How about... Okay, got it. Look, I'm up for it, but I'm not touching your dingle now, Jeremy. The Asda delivery driver is due. Can I have my £1 GW coupon now, please?
Be sure to leave us a YouTube comment telling us your caption suggestion. This is what we call a call to action. It's meant to drive engagement. Does it make it any less cynical if we lampshade it?
And don't forget to smash that like button!
Lastly, we come to the Games Workshop price list. Now, as viewers who are actually eagles might have noticed, this scan is, in fact, from 1979. However, as far as we're aware, the only real difference between the printings is this page, since it was updated to reflect their current products at the time, as well as the fact that GW actually had a physical store you could go to by then. Actually, whilst we're mentioning it, whatever happened to that old Hammersmith store? Oh, that's kinda depressing. Wait.
That man has a blurred crotch.
So, there you have it, White Dwarf number 1. It's an interesting time capsule of an era long gone. Not only for White Dwarf, but both for Games Workshop and tabletop gaming in general. It's so unlike the slick, full-colour production of its current iteration, and the complete lack of the franchises you associate with GW makes it feel like a totally different entity. But hey, at least it meant we were able to talk about some games that weren't 40k in this series for a change. I wonder how much it would cost to get a genuine physical copy for this video.